Hello viewers, once again it's me, Edwin Nomer, and this is my channel, It Pays to Fear God. This is where we learn about God, His beloved Son Jesus Christ, and their kingdom purpose, the three most important subjects that we can ever learn about, talk about, or discuss in the entire Holy Bible according to John chapter 17 verse 3. The subject that I have prepared for you and myself today is captioned Maintaining Our Virgin Purity. However, before we get into that, I once again have a tune that some of us might enjoy. And while I'm playing that tune, you can go ahead and click the subscribe button and also the notification bell so that you can be the first to arrive when we make our next video. Once again, the subject that I've prepared for you and myself today is captioned Maintaining Our Virgin Purity. To be a virgin is another word of being chaste, or it means to not know man, or in more modern language, to not have had anything to do, sexually speaking, with a man. In order to understand the spiritual virginity, we have to understand what it means to physically be a virgin. And there were examples in the Bible of people that were. When we think of a virgin, we always remember Mary, who had Jesus as a child before Joseph and Mary had actually been engaged enough to get married. If we read Matthew chapter 1 from verses 18 to 25. Rebecca, before Isaac had married her, was a virgin. If we read Genesis chapter 24 verse 16. And when the people were going to destroy the ones in Jabesh Gilead in Judges chapter 21 from verses 1 to 13, they saved 400 people who were labeled virgins, and the reason was stated there, because they did not know man. They had not had sex with any given man. So that is what virginity means. And in the Old Testament, virginity was explained in detail. And if we read Deuteronomy chapter 22, from verses 13 straight down to verse 30, we see a lot of details that had been given of various scenarios that would happen to a virgin that was about to get married to somebody else, and the consequences that would come from various things. For example, if a woman were to be sexually assaulted and she did not cry out, then both of them, the woman and the man, would be stoned to death. If the man had accused her of not being a virgin, then they take the evidence of the cloth and then they see that she was a virgin, and the man has to pay a certain amount of money. So there are various traditions that were set around virginity. However, we have to understand what those traditions are, why those are important, because those relate to how we need to be virgins, man or woman, before God in these last days. The thing that makes us virgins before God is our understanding of the truth, in the sense that before we can purify ourselves of our iniquities, we have to first of all understand the truth. And why do I say the truth is what can make us pure? Because the truth itself is a pure thing. If we read Psalms chapter 12 verse 6, David the psalmist had stated, "The words of the Lord are pure words, as silver tried in the furnace of earth, purified 7 times." If you also read Psalms chapter 119, verse 140, chapter 19 of the same Psalms, from verses 7 to 11, Hebrews chapter 4 verse 12, and also 1 John chapter 2 in verses 21 and 27. It helps us to understand that the truth is pure because the truth has no lies. When we come to understand it, it allows us to not only reason from it if we read Isaiah chapter 1 verse 18, but when we do so, those iniquities in us, those things that should be purged, can be purged or make us pure because we understand the truth. Now, there are many examples in the Bible of people that were pure and people that weren't, and we're going to go through some of them. Hezekiah is an example of somebody who was pure, who was a spiritual virgin, because he did not defile himself with the gods that his father had set up. In fact, he had gotten rid of all of them because he wanted to rule God's land the way God wanted his land to be ruled. It's not the way he himself would have probably wanted it to be ruled. And that was why in 2 Chronicles chapter 31 in verses 20 and 21, it states that King Hezekiah did everything that God wanted, not just everything that God wanted, but with a perfect heart. It was not like King Amaziah, who did everything God wanted, but not with a perfect heart. If we read 2 Chronicles chapter 25, in verses 1 and 2, but King Hezekiah did everything that God wanted him to do purely because he had a perfect heart. And in Isaiah chapter 38 verse 3, King Hezekiah himself, confessing before God when he was wondering why he was sick and told by Isaiah the prophet that he was to die, had stated, "Remember now, O Lord, I beseech thee, how I have walked before thee in truth and with a perfect heart, and have done that which is good in thy sight." When God heard these statements of King Hezekiah, he'd actually sent Isaiah the son of Amos back to go tell him that add an extra 15 years. I myself am going to add an extra 15 years to this guy's life, which was significant to his age because I realized myself that he is a pure virgin. He deserves more time to live. It's not only the blessing of being a virgin, but it's a good example of somebody who realized and kept his virginity. Another example is Joseph, who did not defile himself by committing a very big sin with Potiphar's wife, lying with her if he listened to her, in Genesis chapter 39 from verses 1 to 20. We have to understand his entire position of keeping the food and stuff would have been at risk if he decided not to, and indeed he didn't, and that was why he moved from his high position at the time to coming all the way down to prison. Many people would have looked at this, analyzed this, and then just went with Potiphar's wife's offer because they didn't want to lose their position. But because Joseph wanted to keep his purity and valued that purity more than going to prison and stuff, he decided that no, I am not going to do that with you. And whatever consequences are going to come, I myself will face them. There's also the story of Zechariah and Elizabeth, who were named blameless before God, walking in all of his commandments. If we read Luke chapter 1 from verses 5 to 7. An example of somebody who defiled himself was King Solomon because he married women from all kinds of lands, forbidden lands like Ammon, Moab, Edom, Zidon, etc. All those lands that people like David had conquered, destroyed, taken out. Now, Solomon was going to marry from all of those lands. And as a result, God stole the kingdom that he was ruling from him and gave it to Jeroboam. The 10 tribes were given to him because Solomon defiled himself. If we read 1 Kings chapter 11 from verses 1 to 10 or so. A bigger example is Israel, who defiled themselves with the things of the Gentiles. If we read Lamentations chapter 4 from verses 6 to 8. They were purer than white snow as they were before they had started sinning. But once they were filled with iniquity, they were as red as crimson and as black as charcoal. And that was why God said, you are not going to have anything to do with me anymore because you have forgotten all of my laws and traditions. If we read Ezekiel chapter 4 verse 13 and Hosea chapter 9 verse 3. Now, a big part of this talk is maintaining virgin purity. Not just having virgin purity, but maintaining that virgin purity. Read 2 Corinthians chapter 11 from verses 2 to 6. 1 Corinthians chapter 5 from verses 9 to 13, chapter 6 from verses 15 to 20, and 2 Corinthians chapter 6 from verses 14 to 18. Those 4 places talk about how we should never defile ourselves with the things of this world, meaning we should never have anything to do with people generally who do not believe in God's traditions. Those should never be our bosom friends. They can be our co-workers and stuff, because we do not control the world. And of course, those people will always have to be in our lives in some form. But what we control is how close they are to us. If we ever finding somebody who does not know God, who is just stealing our virgin purity away bit by bit, that we know those people should never be a part of our lives. We must make sure that everything that we're dealing with is clean. In Isaiah chapter 52 verse 11, Isaiah the prophet had stated, depart ye, go ye out from hence, touch no unclean thing. Be ye clean that bear the vessels of the Lord. When we talk about being clean, the book of Leviticus, I'm telling you, has talked a lot about it. If you read Leviticus chapter 11, from verses 41 to 47, for example, it goes into some detail about how we should not touch, at the time, dead animals. Anything having to do with dead people, God ruled it out. Dead people, dead animals, corpses, anything having to do with that. Sometimes, even if you touch something that somebody else who was unclean from touching dead things touched, you are unclean until the evening. And if you touch stuff that were dead, you were considered unclean for the next 7 days. And there was a process for you to go back to you being pure. It's a very interesting account. Leviticus chapter 11 from verses 41 to 47. Chapter 15 from verses 4 to 12, and from verses 20 to 24. Chapter 13 from verses 1 straight down to verse 59. And also chapter 14 talking about leprosy and how people who had leprosy had to be sort of excommunicated, if I may use that word, or just separated from the rest of the people because they were unclean. And leprosy is not the kind of disease that you want to have with people who do not have. That was why Miriam, for example, was brought out and separated from the rest of the group, because God cursed her with leprosy. That whole Leviticus talks about how people back then, even till now too, should never be unclean with all kinds of things. And spiritually, what we take from all those cultures and traditions is we should never have anything to do with people, institutions, traditions generally that do not subscribe to God's principles. Otherwise, we will be defiling ourselves of them. It's very important that we keep this in mind. Another thing that we have to understand considering maintaining our virgin purity is that we cannot be a virgin in 2 places. This may seem obvious, of course. A physical virgin cannot be a virgin for 2 people, but many people commit the crime of Matthew chapter 6, verse 24. You cannot serve 2 masters. You will rather love the one or hate the other, or hold to the one and despise the other. Ye cannot serve God and mammon. We must love God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our might. If we read Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5, we must use the truth to cleanse ourselves and maintain that purity. If we read James chapter 4, verse 4, James the apostle had stated, Ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. However, us being pure before God is not just completely our work. God himself also intervened. Because of how God chastens us, makes us pure before him in these last days through such experiences, in Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 5, Moses had told the Israelites, Thou shalt also consider in thy heart that as a man chasteneth his son, so the Lord thy God chasteneth thee. And in Hebrews chapter 12 from verses 6 to 11, that talks about how God disciplines his sons. And in these last days, God is going to purify the sins of this world, in the sense that the things that Satan the devil used to control, God is going to cut and destroy all of those things. An event that is taking place in these last days. If we read Isaiah chapter 63 from verses 1 to 6 and from verses 9 to 14, so that everything can remain pure and chaste before him. If we read Ezekiel chapter 36 from verses 25 to 27, Ezekiel the prophet had stated, "Then will I sprinkle clean water upon you, and ye shall be clean. From all your filthiness, and from all your idols will I cleanse you. A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you an heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and ye shall keep my judgments, and do them." And in chapter 20, verse 38 of the same book of Ezekiel, Ezekiel the prophet had also stated, "And I will purge out from among you the rebels, and them that transgress against me. I will bring them forth out of the country where they sojourn, and they shall not enter into the land of Israel. And ye shall know that I am the Lord." God is willing to do all of this, purify this world of all its sins and the other stuff, but we also have to put our own work and attempt to be holy. Freed from Leviticus chapter 11 and verses 44 and 45, and later repeated by St. Peter in 1 Peter chapter 1 verse 16. We should be holy because God himself is holy. It's very important that we keep this in mind. Talking about virgins and purity, these saints have also been considered in that condition, because in Revelation chapter 14 verse 4, the author of Revelation had stated, "These are they which were not defiled with woman, for they're virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb." And in chapter 19, from verses 6 to 8, it also states, "And I heard as it were the voice of a great multitude, and as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of mighty thundering, saying, Alleluia, for the Lord God omnipotent reigneth. Let us be glad and rejoice, and give honor to him. For the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife hath made herself ready. And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for the fine linen is the righteousness of the saints." And that is even physically symbolic, in the sense that when women, for example, want to get married, they usually wear white. They don't wear red or orange or yellow. No, they usually wear white. And that white is representing the purity that they are supposed to have. The reason why the saints or the apostles of God have to be pure is because God does not want a marriage with Jesus Christ to be taken from people who were defiled. Jesus Christ, spiritually speaking, marrying people who have stuff to do with the world. This is Old Testament tradition as well. The priests like Aaron, Samuel, Eli, they couldn't be marrying people who were harlots, whores, defiled with other men. No, they had to marry virgins. If we read Ezekiel chapter 44 verse 22 and Leviticus chapter 21 in verses 10, 13, and 14. And the bishops in Christianity as well, we're not supposed to be marrying such people as well, but they're supposed to be having one wife. If read 1 Timothy chapter 3 from verses 2 to 7 and Titus chapter 1 from verses 7 to 9. All this virginity and purity stuff is very important because it is a big principle of God. God doesn't want to have anything to do with people who also have something to do with Satan the devil. He wants people who are his and can give their hearts to him. It's just how a virgin is owned by a man. Talked about bluntly in Joel chapter 1 verse 18. The way a virgin cries out, mourns for her husband because she gives everything to her husband. And we as true Christians and children of God have to give everything to God so that he has access to our hearts, so that he can influence us in the right way. It's very important that we keep this in mind. I hope we now understand what virgin purity means in Christianity. The rewards of being a virgin are very great. In Psalm chapter 24, from verses 3 to 5, David the psalmist had stated, "Who shall ascend to the hill of the Lord, or who shall stand in his holy place? He that hath clean hands and a pure heart, who hath not lifted up his soul unto vanity, nor sworn deceitfully. he shall receive the blessing from the Lord, and righteousness from the God of his salvation. And in Matthew chapter 5, verse 8, Jesus Christ himself had stated, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." And I choose to end my talk on the subject, maintaining our virgin purity. To conclude this episode, I once again have a tune that some of us might enjoy. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something. Most importantly, please try to subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video and click the notification bell to be notified when we make future uploads. Thank you for listening.